Aloha, ahi ahi kako, good evening everyone, aloha. Board of Regent Doug Shinsato, Chancellor Rachel Solemsas, distinguished guests, faculty, staff, mahalo for allowing me the honor of delivering this evening's commencement speech. To the parents, grandparents, wives, husbands, uncles, aunties, children, all the family and friends who supported these graduates, cheered them on, sacrificed, paid their tuition, helped them study, and made sure they got here tonight. This is your evening too. Let's give you all a big round of applause. And finally, to the Hawaiʻi Community College graduating class of spring 2018, you did it, you earned it, and as the chair of the Senate Committee on Higher Education, I am so very proud of each and every one of you. Congratulations. You know, before I go on, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge everyone that has been and will be affected by the lava in Puna. To the families who have lost their homes, to the families who have been displaced, know that you are not alone. We are with you, and as a community, we will get through this together. To the hundreds of county, state, federal, military, police, fire, Red Cross, first responders, and community volunteers who have literally given all of themselves over this last 8 days and will continue to do so in the coming months, I want to say a heartfelt and deep mahalo nui loa. I am sincerely honored to be here tonight, especially speaking at this commencement, because just like all of you, my higher education pursuit started right here at Hawaiʻi Community College in 1992. Now, despite that outstanding introduction by Vice Chancellor Onishi, for those of you who knew me before those accomplishments, you must be scratching your head thinking, how did he get up here tonight? And I don't blame you for thinking that. In fact, I would almost bet that I will probably go down in history as the only state senator to represent Hilo that went to all 3 high schools in Hilo. Hilo High, Waiakea, and St. Joe. And it wasn't because I was a super athlete that everyone wanted. It was because I was super at being one thing in high school, and that was being kolohe. I got an A+ at driving my parents, my teachers, and everyone else crazy in the early 1990s. In fact, if you look in the Hilo High School class of 1992 yearbook, you won't find a single mention of my name because they sent the yearbook to print before I got to Hilo High School in November of my senior year. Now, although I'm not promoting it, it does have its advantages because every 5 years, I get invited to every high school reunion in Hilo. You know, but I've digressed. HCC was not my first choice, really, because I had no choice. My grades out of high school were so terrible that I couldn't get into Hilo, I couldn't get into University of Hawaii Manoa, or anywhere for that matter. So I had to start off, maybe like some of you, by proving myself academically at HCC. And I did so for 1.5 years before moving on to Hilo and finally to Manoa. Now, even more of a head scratcher is that even though I showed up at Hilo High in my senior year, November of 1992, barely graduated 7 months later, I was invited back to give the commencement speech to the Hilo High School class of 1997 just 5 years later. How's that one? Kinkara Waikea, kicked out of St. Joe, barely graduate from Hilo High, went there for only 7 months, and 5 years later get invited back to speak at graduation. Why? How come? Well, that's the story I want to share with you tonight. And the message I want to leave with each and every one of you as you start this new chapter in your lives as college graduates. It is the summer of 1992. I just graduated from Hilo and I'm getting ready for HCC. And I'm sitting in the Waiakea High gym watching a volleyball tournament. Now, I had tried to play volleyball my senior year in high school at St. Joe before I got kicked out. Made the team because I was tall, but was never really good at it. In fact, I sucked big time. In fact, I was so bad, the St. Joe volleyball coach told me I would never, ever be a volleyball player. Had asked me on several occasions to quit the team because he truly believed that I was a danger to the other players, not to mention myself. But I wasn't a quitter. I was trying my best, and I told the coach no. I wasn't quitting, I was gonna stick it out. Well, he never cut me, but he never played me. Not once the entire season. We would be getting blown out in Kohala. Everybody's playing. The people thinking stats are playing, but not me. He never put me in one game, not for a single second, all season. So I'm sitting in this gym and this guy who my dad would tell me about because he played in the Olympics and was in the Volleyball Hall of Fame, random, sits down next to me. He introduces himself as Pete Velasco and tells me that he watched me throughout the season. Now, I don't know what he was watching because I didn't play. Maybe he was watching me warm up or something like that. And he told me that he saw some raw talent in me. Green is what he called it. And he was wanting to know if I was interested in playing in the Lokahi Volleyball Club. What he tells me is the club is on Oahu. I would practice with him at the Hilo High gym twice a week, work out at the beach every Saturday, and then I would fly out to Oahu to join the team for the games and join them when they came to Hilo for the Haile tournament. I said, hey, sounds good to me. He said, sounds good. Great, we'll see you next week, 7 p.m. So I show up. He's there setting up the net. I help him set up, and finally it's 7 o'clock, and it's time to start practice. He says, are you ready? I said, yeah. Problem is, I'm looking around, and no one is there except for me. I asked him, hey, where's everybody else? But he says there was no one else coming. It was just him and I. Now, I know you need more than 2 people to play volleyball. So I'm thinking, what's up? He then sits me down and begins to tell me before we started that if I was committed to his system, I came with an open mind and I worked harder than I ever had before, that in 2 years, he could put me in any Division I collegiate volleyball program in the country. Now that got my attention because I was thinking UCLA, I'm going Stanford, Pepperdine. And so we began. And we ran drills over and over. And for 2 years, I spent every Tuesday and Thursday night in the Hilo High gym. And every Saturday we would drive 3 hours round trip to Hapuna Beach for sand and ocean training. He was the head coach for the Hilo High School volleyball team, and he immediately made me an assistant. I didn't know anything about coaching volleyball. I was 19 years old. But I was there to learn, to watch, to practice with the team, and coach in competition. Those 2 years taught me the building blocks for success, and I dramatically excelled at volleyball. Those nights in the Hilo High gym taught me an unbelievable work ethic, lessons of dedication, of laser focus, of relentlessness, perseverance, compatibility, and humility. Whenever I was pushed to the brink of exhaustion, Velasco would remind me of that coach at St. Joe who said I would never ever be a volleyball player, and it would burn a fire inside of me that would cause me to push harder and work harder He would tell me right when I was ready to give up, when I was at my weakest, that somewhere at that very moment, another volleyball player was also training, getting ready for the day we would meet each other on the court in competition. And that would push me to find a little bit of more energy to keep going on, even if I was at the brink of exhaustion. Coach Velasco would constantly reinforce his personal values in me. Every practice was a life lesson, and I got many of those. But the one that stands out the most, about a year and a half into our training, he tells me, success comes from hard work. I have taught you that. But I need you to know, Kai, do not be afraid to fail. There will be times in your life that no matter how hard you work, how much you prepare, how much you try, that sometimes you will not achieve your goal. But as long as you know inside, in your heart, that you did everything you could, that you never gave up, that you never quit, that you gave 110%, that you can walk away with your head held high because you did your best. That in of itself is success. And I have carried that lesson with me ever since. So what happened to the volleyball? Fast forward to the fall of 1994, 2 years later, and for whatever reason, life leads me to UH Manoa. And it is the first day of school. I'm having lunch in the cafeteria, and a classmate from Hilo High, who I had not seen for 2 years, who is playing on the UH men's volleyball team, runs into me. And he says, hey, you going to Manoa? And I'm like, yeah, first day. And he says, you should come to the meeting. And I say, what meeting? He says, the meeting for the UH men's volleyball team, tryouts. I said, bro, I'm not going to the meeting. First day of school, I'm just trying to find my class, checking out all these wahines. There's no way I'm going to a meeting. He says, you know what, up to you. But if you want to come try out, the meeting is this afternoon. So again, life presents itself to you in strange ways. And what do? I show up at the meeting. And the meeting is packed, 50, 60 players, all trying out, some on scholarship, returning players, invited players, walk-ons, the best of Hawaii's high school volleyball players, the wannabes, and me, sitting in the back. Well, at the end of the meeting, the crowd thins out. And the head coach, he looks at me. Actually, he has been staring at me the entire meeting. And I go up to him to shake his hand and say hello. Well, remember that coach at St. Joe? It's him. His name is Mike Wilton, and he is now the head coach of the UH men's volleyball team. He asked me what I was doing here, and I said I wanted to try out. Now remember, he hasn't seen me for 2 years, since St. Joe. He has this shocked look on his face and says, what you been doing? And I told him I have been training with Pete Velasco and playing in the Lokahi Volleyball Club for 2 years. And that was all I had to say. Wilton and Velasco had known each other for years. Their relationship went back to BYU Hawaii when it was called Church College. It was enough for Wilton to allow me to try out. So it began. August became September, and I survived all the physical tests to weed you out. We started in the gym, and I was always the first to show up and the last to leave. I would leave class early, cut class, set up nets, beat a water boy, wipe the floor, whatever it took. I would do anything to make it another day. As the months went on, players were getting cut, guys quit, asked not to come back, but somehow I managed to survive. And the longer I remained, the more I wanted it. Finally, it's November, just days before Thanksgiving, and there is 19 players left, and one more needs to be cut because NCAA rules require only 18 players on the roster. It's me and this other guy, a top high school athlete from Kauai. Now, through the course of those months, when we were trying out, it was obvious that the walk-ons were different from the others. everyone else had their UH-issued green and white practice uniforms with the rainbow on the back, brand new ASIC shoes, matching socks, all the cool UH gear. The walk-ons, we were the hooligans. We had nothing. What you showed up with is what you wore. Also, the players that were on the team, they had their own lockers with their name on the top. All nice, all together, nice and clean. The walk-ons, lucky they gave us lockers. But they did, but it was in the back. Separated from the team, rusty, no more name, no lock. But at least we had a locker to put our stuff in. And as bad as it was, I took pride in my locker because it was the only thing I had. So it's the final day. Coach Wilton is cutting the last player. And I show up early, just as I had done every day since August. I go to my locker to change, and all my stuff is gone. Cleared out, empty. I thought, well, that's it, I'm done. My stuff must be outside the building in a box. This is how it's going down. I was super disappointed that they picked the other guy, but I was ready to move on because I knew I worked hard and I did everything I could. As I go to walk out of the locker room, something tells me to stop. Turn around and go walk over where the team lockers are. Just go check, this voice tells me. So I take a look, I walk over, and there with the other 17 lockers is locker number 18. And it has Kahele in big, bold letters. I open it up, and inside is my green and white uniform, my ASIC shoes, my socks, my UH bag. No one is around yet, so I change into my uniform, I walk over to the mirror, I look at myself, and it was almost like I became instantly another person. I was like a superhero in that moment. I could do anything, fly, walk on water, run through walls, whatever. As I walk out of the locker room, in full uniform, I come around the corner, and the first person I run into is Coach Wilton. He stops, doesn't say anything, looks me up and down from head to toe, smiles big, reaches out and shakes my hand and says, "Congratulations, Kai, welcome to the University of Hawaii men's volleyball team." I couldn't believe it. Here was the guy who told me 2 years ago I would never ever be a volleyball player, to quit over and over, and he had just selected me as the last person to make his Division I team in 1994. First thing I did was go out to a payphone, call my dad at PTA Pohakuloa, and I told him, "Dad, you're not gonna believe this, but I just made the UH men's volleyball team." And I know he was so proud because it was a culmination of 2 years of hard work. Had never touched a volleyball until the 12th grade. Never played competitively besides club volleyball, and in 24 months, just 2 years, I walked on and made the Division I program Coach Velasco told me about. I would end up playing volleyball at UH Manoa for 3 years, went to 2 Final Fours and the national championship in 1996. I went from a 1-point-something GPA out of high school and became a UH Scholar athlete, and was honored and named by my teammates as the most inspirational player my senior year in 1997. I truly believe everything in life happens for a reason, and life will come at you and give you its toughest challenges when you least expect it. For the last 26 years, I never realized that everything Coach Velasco taught me, everything I have done to be successful up to this very moment, the opponents I was preparing myself for, that my greatest opponent that I would ever face was actually myself. Ever since my dad died, it has taken every bit of everything I have learned to continue doing what I do today. To be a husband, a father, a son, a brother, a pilot, an airman, a senator, a leader, a colleague, and a friend. To this day, I don't know why Pete Velasco sat down next to me in that gym in 1992, but I am so thankful he did. You know, I have never had an opportunity to publicly thank him for that, but he happens to be here tonight as my guest. And so if you would allow me a brief moment to introduce to you my coach, the person that changed my life, one of only 3 people from Hawaii ever inducted into the United States Volleyball Hall of Fame, one of the greatest volleyball players to ever play the sport, captain of the 1964 Olympic team, the 1968 Olympic team, founder of Lokahi Volleyball Club, who just turned 81 years young last month, Pedro, Mr. P. Velasco. Will you please stand? Mahalo, Mr. P, thank you, and I love you. Graduates, tonight is the beginning of the rest of your life, so let me leave you with some parting advice. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's that anything is possible. You only live once. So dream big dreams. Have a powerful vision of what you want to accomplish. Set goals to bring it to fruition, and then chase it with reckless abandon. Be passionate about your goals and pursuits. Be determined. Take risks. Work hard. Never look back. And most importantly, never, ever, ever give up. Finally, the greatest joy you will ever feel is the joy in helping others succeed. In our lifetimes, we should all aspire at least once to be a Pete Velasco. Make a difference in your community, inspire a child, help a troubled teenager, volunteer with our kupuna, be a role model for others. And as you experience success, share that success. Reach down and help someone else up. Changing someone's life for the better is the greatest feeling you will ever know. I truly believe one person can change the world. So be that person and let's change the world together. Congratulations, class of 2018. Good luck, I'm proud of you. God bless you all in these beautiful islands we all call home. I mua Hawaii, and mahalo nui loa.